So let's jump on in. We want to keep this to 30 minutes and make sure we can get you in and out of here. So
yeah, let's get going. So what are we going to cover? Because this is a 4-week program, right? And hopefully you registered for all 4 weeks. Today is obviously week 1. So we're going to be covering over the next 4 weeks, all of these topics from the fundamentals all the way through a SWOT analysis. And we're going to make it really simple for you to be able to follow along and create a plan that is comprehensive over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, so your plan is your roadmap. We talk about this all the time, but over the next 4 weeks, we'll be looking at the key areas of your business and evaluating what needs to be added. 2021 was an incredible year for a lot of us. So what we also want to take a look at is, how do I take what I really was able to accomplish this year and continue on with scaling and growing as we move into 2022? So here's what I will ask of all of you is take the time to really invest in yourself. There are going to be some spots throughout this business plan where you're going to have to be thoughtful, take a step back, maybe kind of find some quiet time to really evaluate where you are right now today and really where do you want to take yourself next year. I think the more that you take this time to really outline a great plan for next year, you're going to really be set up for success.
That's right. And if this is the first year you're doing a business plan, you've always had good intentions. Let's make this the first year you actually complete the business plan. The first thing we're going to talk about are the 6 fundamentals of business planning. So what we want to share is that this is nothing new. Right. The interesting thing about business planning is that a business plan is a business plan. Now, there's different concepts and ideas and ways to do it that we're going to put forth. But when we start talking about the fundamentals of business planning, it's pretty consistent. And this is where when Amy says we want to spend some time really focusing and quiet time and thinking about your business, because maybe we haven't had the opportunity this year, this is where you really want to do it in week 1.
Yep. So if you had the opportunity to see Kevin's video on Friday, he also included in that email a link to the business plan for 2022 for all of you to work on. And you're going to see that there are tabs that break down each of the sections. And the very first one incorporates these fundamentals. And what we have there for you is the ability to understand each of these 6 fundamentals. We actually show you some examples, and then there is a section for you to actually enter in your specifics as it pertains to your business.
So let's talk about number 1. Number 1 is commitment. Commitment is really, it's a message to yourself. It's a message to yourself about how committed you are to your business growth, how committed you are to what you want to happen in 2022. This is almost like an affirmation, and you want to get really granular and specific with this. So this first part, committing, what are you committing to? Growing your business by 30%, growing your business by 20%, beating the market by 25%. We've all ridden the market wave this year. Let's make sure that we beat the market, not just stay steady if the market continues to increase. So this number 1 is commitment. It's a message to yourself, almost like an affirmation about what you will do in the coming year.
Yeah. And I encourage you on that commitment side, just to make sure that you get really specific. You're committing to an increase of your business. Maybe it's 20% next year, but then it's getting a little bit more specific on some of the things you're going to do to actually get there. So again, can't reinforce enough to just take the time to get really granular on each of these sections. The second topic that we really want you to think about is accountability. And for all of us in the business, this is probably one of the hardest things to really kind of get done or anchor, because we all get busy, we all get distracted. And a lot of times we're just trying to keep up with the business we have in front of us and don't always hold ourselves to structure and accountability. So what I want you to do is to really take a look back at 2021 and figure out where were areas where I kind of really blew it, where I really just didn't allow myself to be as accountable as I could have been to some of the areas of my business. And I see as a result of it that I maybe lost opportunity. So an example is, as you're going into 2022, maybe what you want to make sure of is that you have an opportunity once a month to actually sit down with your managing broker and check in. Now, here's the thing. You can say that you're going to do that, but what we want you to do is take that second step or the actual action of then reaching out to your managing broker and saying, can we get this in the calendar right now? Starting in January, I just want 30 minutes of your time once a month so that I can have from you your perspective perspective on how I'm doing and helping to hold me accountable. The second idea, as far as accountability, is we work in our business all the time, transactional. We're busy doing things with clients, inspections, you name it. But have you been able to carve out time where you can work on your business? So maybe part of your accountability is actually time blocking and picking out those exact times in your calendar and putting them in now for next year, when you're going to do 2 1-hour sessions where you focus solely on prospecting or outreach. So think about how you're going to hold yourself accountable. And again, get granular, get really specific about how you're going to take action to be able to be accountable.
Yeah, that's just reiterating the specific part of it. We're going to talk more about that down the road, but when we're more specific, we're actually able to set a plan, right? If we just loosey-goosey have an idea, I just want to increase my business and we'll do it, we'll see what happens. It's not a plan. It's not something that's going to be something you can hold yourself accountable to. So number 3 is motivation. This is really important. And if you know Simon Sinek, if you've read any business book ever, it's the why. Why are you doing this? And so what motivates you really? And what truly motivates you? Meaning not just some idea of I want to do, really deep down inside, do some thinking. Why do you spend so much time working on your business, working in your business? Why do you spend so much time working with clients and giving them emotional support when sometimes that's at the real neglecting ourselves sometimes? So what motivates you? Because this is important, especially as you get to spring season and you get to the summer, and we felt this year. You sit back and you're like, why am I doing this? Here's the why. Think about it now. So some good examples that we have are obviously financial. So financial is one, being able to pay down debt, being able to be financially secure, being able to invest, being able to buy a second home, being able to support your family no matter what happens in the market. And I heard a great why a couple of weeks ago. There was someone that shared with me that their why and why they work so hard is because they have a disabled child and they want to make sure that long term, no matter what happens, that they will be financially secure and set up so there are no concerns as that child continues to grow. So with that, what is your why? And really be thoughtful about this. What actually motivates you to put so much time, effort, and energy into your business and your clients?
And put it on a sticky and put it somewhere where you can see it, because I think sometimes we forget why we're doing what we're doing. So I think motivation is so important. All right, let's talk about your future vision. I think we always have to think about where we want to go. And, we tend to look at our business plan and we always say, okay, I'm going to plan for next year. And here we are, we're planning for 2022. I feel like in a blink of an eye, I feel like last year we were at It's All About Love, and here we are going towards 2022. But it's actually bigger than that. I want you to really think about the next 3 to 5 years, because oftentimes you have to have a really good understanding of where do I want to be in 5 years? How much do I want to be making? How busy do I want to be? Do I want to be scaling a team at that point? Do I want to actually have individuals working as part of my group or team? Because I think when you're only looking at a year or a 12-month time frame, it doesn't always allow you to kind of get to larger or long-term goals. So, you want to be able to clarify your longer term goals as you're figuring out what you're going to do this next year. There's a good saying that you want to plan with the end in mind, right? So what is that end? Let's say 5 years is an end. You want to figure out, what am I going to need to do in order to get to where I want to be in that 5-year window? So here's a good example. By 2025, I plan to double my current business, scaling from 15 million. Maybe that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to give myself till 2025 to double my business and be hitting 30 million successfully. So that's a big jump. And those are large numbers. So it's, how am I going to be getting there? And what am I going to need to do to make sure that I can manage that type of volume? So in that, I'm also planning to have a team structure in place. And this is really important for a lot of you who are looking to grow. You need to start thinking about that now so that you can be able to figure out how you're going to do that down the road. So specifically, I want to have one full-time assistant and I want to hire them by the end of this year. I want one buyer's broker and I want to have them by the end of 2023. And then maybe one transaction coordinator. So I want you to think about 2025 and start figuring out, where do I want to go, so that you can start figuring that out right now.
Yep. And now let's talk about your mission. So this is really articulating the purpose of your business and what your business entails, really one sentence that dictates the purpose for being. So this is a little bit different than the why, right? And it may feel like as we go through this, there's some overlap, and that's okay. That's okay in each one of these sections. If you're thoughtful about it and you're entering into your sheet as you are thinking through your why, your mission, your when we talk about accountability and all of these things, your mission really is a statement about who you want to be. So here's a good example, which is being knowledgeable, being connected, being passionate. Another mission that you could have would be to be the best at client service, meaning you are, in growing. Now that doesn't sound very specific. You need to get specific in how you're going to do that. But to be a mission would be to be the best client service broker in my community, or to be the most connected broker in my community, meaning you're involved in neighborhood and community events, charity events, et cetera. So that's where a mission comes in, is who do you really want to be in your business? And write that down. And remember, as you're filling this out, you can write a lot of things down as thoughts come to your mind and you're brainstorming and you're thinking through what you're putting in, and then you can narrow it down. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one little thing, one idea, one thought. Really be thoughtful, write it all down, and then narrow down what resonates with you when it comes to a mission and each one of these other topics.
And, I think, Kevin, it's how many times have you heard somebody say that they are a concierge broker, right? I hear that term all the time. And I love it. Sounds great, but it's like, if that's your mission, to Kevin's point, it's like, get a little bit more granular so that when somebody says, what does that mean? Then you can say, well, these are the types of things that I do for my clients that no other broker does. So when you're thinking about that mission, and if a concierge broker is one of your terms, think about that. And then also community is a big thing too, when it comes to your mission. So think about what that means for you. And then number 6 is your client's value statement. So this is really important because you have your mission, you have your why, but at the end of the day, that has to translate successfully to your clients or for people to want to work with you, right? So the value shapes your identity and it guides your client's decision-making process. That's really important because what decision do you want them to make? You want them to make the decision to work with you, right? So you want to write 2 to 3 brief sentences, and you need to answer the following questions that a client would be asking themselves. What will I get from this relationship when I work with Kevin? Why should this relationship matter to me? So those are the questions you need to be able to answer for your clients, because this comes down to it mattering to them and how is it going to move or make a difference for them. So here are 2 examples. So one of the things that you can focus on as far as your value statement for your clients is integrity. You can say, I conduct myself with the highest ethical standards, demonstrating honesty and fairness in every decision and action. But maybe even more specific, I also pride myself on having a really strong understanding of the market so that I can be the best advisor to my clients, right? That's what we want to make sure of, is that we're helping them with their largest asset. And I want to make sure they feel good about it. And respect and trust, that could be another value statement that you're articulating to your clients, is I always work with my clients' best interest in mind. It's not about me, it's about them. I'm authentic, I'm honest, I give them real feedback, and I do it because that's what they deserve. So think about how you articulate your value in answering those 2 questions from your clients.
So what do you need to complete the next part of this? So we went through the fundamentals just now, and this is more thought-based and more, feeling. I want to stress the word feeling. What do you feel as you're filling these things out and thinking about these questions? But now we're going to get into the data side, which we do need also. And maybe one part of it resonates with you, whether it's the feelings, the emotions, the whys, all of that, or maybe it's the data. I know Amy is a little bit more on the emotional side. I'm more on the data side. So if you know each of us, this is why we're a good match. So here with transactions, the important part is being able to pull what you've done in the last year. And that includes being able to pull down your list side, buy side transactions, your total volume, your GCI, which is the gross commission income, the total amount of money you've brought in, and then breaking down your deals. And we're going to talk about this a little more specifically, but I want to stress the breaking down your transactions, the source, where do they generate from? Now, how can you do this? Easiest way, MLS. Depending on what tools you have, of course, at App Properties, we have the DMS, the deal management system. You could pull that down. In your financial reports, you could pull down your commission statements. You could pull down transaction statements from your financial reports, but really the MLS might be the best bet because you can export all of your transactions for the year. And as we get into more detail, Amy's going to explain how to use this sheet. I want to stress one more time, we're going to talk about this a lot, is finding out where your business came from.
Yeah, I think it's really critical. I say, that you have to know what happened or, where you came from in order to really plan moving forward. And so to Kevin's point, two things that you're really going to need. You're going to need to look at all of the transactions that you've done in 2021, but then you're going to need to figure out the financial component. And what you're looking at right now is the second tab in the Excel document that we sent out to you for business planning. And what is great is it's pretty much populated and it shows you what fields you can enter in order to have it spit out the information that you need. So you're going to need to figure out your lead sources and kind of where your business came from, because Kevin and I are going to talk about it a little bit more tomorrow in coffee. But again, where is your business coming from? Because that's where you want to pay attention and make sure that you are, filling it and paying attention to it. But then additionally, you're going to need your total sales volume, and you're going to want to split it out on how much was on a listing side versus buying side. And then what was my gross commission income that I got, again, for sellers and for buyers. So you're going to need to look historically, but then on the second side, you're going to see your 2022 goals. So if historically or last year you did 7 million and you felt like you did pretty good, but you want to push further, maybe your goal this year is going to be 10 million. Well, what you're going to start doing now in this section is starting to figure out, okay, of $10 million, where is that going to come from? How much of it is going to be listings? If I'm predominantly a 70% listing broker, then more listings I'm probably going to focus on, and then maybe a handful of buyers next year. So this allows you to populate all of that stuff. It's really easy to understand, but that's the information you're going to need when you get to this tab so that you can figure out historically, where was I and where do I want to go moving forward into next year?
Yeah. And to repeat really what both of us have said now is the source, right? Yep. Figuring out your average transaction price, being able to determine where it is and how, if you want to increase your average transaction, how can you go about doing that? Again, getting specific with goals. For a seller to buyer ratio, a lot of us that are newer in the business, you start out with more renters and buyers, right? And then transition as those buyers move into selling and move up into different properties. But I think the idea here is you do have control over that based on where you market. And that's where the last bullet point here comes into play again. I know we're hammering this one out. I don't think we spend enough time trying to analyze where our business comes from. And it really will pay off next week when we talk about marketing, when we talk about the financials, because a lot of us, we don't analyze where our business is coming from. We just kind of ad hoc do things and throw money into places. And sometimes it's hard to track where the business comes from. But in reality, a lot of us are shotgunning money into places that aren't profitable, that aren't generating business for us. A lot of us are shotgunning time, which is more valuable than money in a lot of ways. We're shotgunning time into different areas that isn't a business generator for us. So being able to check out what the largest lead sources are that are contributing to our growth, to our business development, is really important. And that includes relationships. A lot of times we don't always focus on the people that are referring us the most. And I know I was guilty of that at times when I was working with clients where I was busy. So I didn't focus enough time on some of my top people. Once you highlight who your sources are and what the top the best places you can spend time, whether it's open houses or otherwise, then you'll be able to increase your business by doing more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I had an agent one year who did this and broke down her business, and she recognized one person referred five people to her, and she did not spend enough time paying attention to this person. But once she figured that out, it was an aha for her. And so she realized, wow, this person is one of my best referral sources, and I need to make sure that I nurture that relationship. So it is paying attention to where your business is coming from. But I also want you to take a look at your transaction history for 2021 and see where your total volume was. Were you at 3 million at the end of the year, or will you be at 3 million, 7 million, 15 million? And then determine as you get into 2022 planning, what's the goal you're going to set for yourself? Will you be trying to increase your business by 25%? 50, 100, you have to sort of determine, what did I do and where do I want to go? And then here's the other thing, evaluate your pipeline right now. I want you to figure out, because most of you probably have clients that are going to be on the 2022 docket, right? You're nurturing them, the relationship's happening now, but they're not going to do anything till 2022. So you already know, maybe I have 2 sellers and 1 buyer that I know are going to be in my numbers for next year. Make sure you account for that, because then they already go towards your goal. But then you figure out, what else am I going to have to do throughout the year to get the remaining number of clients in order to meet my goals? So making sure you spend some time evaluating and taking a look at where you're at and being able to figure out, what is my goal setting for next year?
So let's talk about what we need to do to meet those goals, right? Now, this is sometimes we're like, you hear the word processes and you're like, oh God, what? Here, processes, operations, systems, this is all important. Sounds like nerd talk, but it's important, because if we don't have process in place, if we don't have systems in place, if we don't focus on our operations, whether we're a one agent show or we have a team, we're not going to be as successful as we could be. And it's unlikely we'll meet our goals if we're setting stretch goals, right? So here's a tab. Amy will explain this, but this is another tab in your spreadsheet that we want you to complete during week 1.
Yeah, so this is allowing you to take a look at, how does my business operate? And so it's really simple. We gave some examples in the spreadsheet for you to look at to give you some ideas. But, one example might be, I don't really have a great listing presentation process. So one of the things I'm going to put on my initiatives for next year is I'm going to lock that down so that I know exactly what I do from the first contact with a seller to getting them to sign the listing agreement, right? What you might also have on your operations want list is, I really want to get some administrative help. So I'm going to set a goal that by the end of March, I'm going to have hired somebody full-time, part-time, you decide, and I'm going to make sure that they take off all of the back office stuff that I'm doing for myself right now. So I want you to think about, what am I going to do from an operations side? And this is where I want you to think about the idea of scaling, because many of you have said to Kevin and I, this year was crazy, and I don't know if I can do this again next year. If you can't do what you did this year again, then maybe you need to think about, what can I do from an operations standpoint to provide some relief so that I can focus on the things that I need to, and that I can have some other support get and take care of the rest of my business. So one thing just to note is, make sure you prioritize it. There's a priority score, but then you also want to do like a target date of completion. Make it measurable and make it timely. You want to make sure that you try and put a time frame in there for yourself. And this is something you'll be checking back on through the course of the year next year.
Yeah. So this operations piece is really important, because Amy mentioned the word scale, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But really the idea here is the more productive you are, the more you can work on your business, the more money you will make, or the more likely you will be to push towards your goal and satisfy your why, move closer to why you're doing this. And one of the things we talk about when it comes to scale or whatever that Amy mentioned that we hear a lot is, we're hesitant to actually put systems in place. We're hesitant specifically to change our operations because we're worried that our business won't be the same, that maybe the market will fall. We're worried about investing in our business because we are subject in some cases to the market, because we allow ourselves to be. Here's the thing, something's got to happen first, chicken and the egg and all of this. You got to streamline your business in order to grow. You've got to put people or resources in place. Otherwise, you will be doing the same thing over and over. And Amy mentioned how we felt earlier this year, where it was like, I don't want to go through this sort of stress and running from January all the way through July again. We got to do something different. Because if we don't, you're going to get the same result, right? It'll be the same sales goals. It'll be the same sales results. It'll be the same stress level. I know it puts stress on a lot of our families or a lot of our relationships with friends and those around us. So what do we have to do? Well, Amy's going to talk about it.
So two things I want you to really think about. First one is scale. And this is even if you are 1 year into the business, 2 years into the business, everyone should always be asking myself, how do I scale? Do I have enough bandwidth to handle the business with the support of what I have today? And Beno is a great example. Beno Ansley is a great example. He was on one of our coffees about a year and a half ago. And he said, when I do my business planning, I hire for where I anticipate I'm going to be next year. So if I'm doing 30 million this year and I want to do 50 million next year, I hire today and I provide scale and infrastructure today for the 50 million I know I'm going to get to. So think about that. Even if it is looking at getting a transaction coordinator and being able to hire them for a couple of hours a week to help with back office. Think about scale. And that might be for some of you thinking about a team or adding people or adding an assistant. And then I want you to also think about the process side of things. Do you have systems in place that make it really easy to run your business? When a seller calls you and says, hey, I need you to meet me because I'm thinking about selling my home. Is it really easy for you to pull all of that information together because you have a process in place? What about your buyers? Do you have a process in place when somebody calls and says, hey, I'm really thinking about buying a home? What can you do so that it's documented and that it's easily repeatable? So those are the two things I want you to be thinking about when we're looking at operations.
And a great way to learn more about process. Just need to do a plug for Ninja. We're coming up on the registration deadline. Ninja, November 8th to 11th here in Chicago. It's all about process. Of course, there's a lot about mindset and all of these other activities too, but one of the biggest parts of Ninja is the process to do exactly what Amy's talking about, documented and repeatable, so that every time you have a listing, every time you have a buyer, you can repeat the same actions that create the concierge level service.
That's right. Ninja is a game changer, 100%.
Truly is. So SMART goals. We all know what SMART goals are. I just want to highlight this really quickly. This is a tab. When we set our goals, Amy mentioned it earlier, getting really specific. I said it as well. You need to get specific with your goals. If you just set something that's loosey-goosey, you don't know when you hit it. You don't know if you hit it. You don't know actually what you're working towards in a specific way. Same thing with measurable. You have to be able to measure it. Sometimes we put goals in place that we don't know when or if we got there. You need to be able to say, yes, I just hit my goal, which means it has to be measurable. There has to be some sort of metric. It has to be achievable, right? It's one thing to say, I want to sell 100 million in 2022. If this year you sold 3 million, you could probably do it. You just got to figure out how to make it happen. It's not going to be easy, right? So when we talk about achievable, it doesn't mean sandbagging your goals by making them slam dunks and easy. What it does mean is, let's be realistic about the time, effort, and energy that we're willing to put in based on that commitment statement on the first tab. Then realistic. Same idea, and timely. There has to be some sort of timeline by which you will get it. This one's easy because it's December 31, 2022, right? So all of our goals, but during the year, we want to progress. So when we're talking about operations and process, getting your listing process set up by February 1 is going to be a big advantage so that as we push into the listing season, you're ready to go.
Yep. So we are super excited that you joined us this morning. Tomorrow on Coffee, Kevin and I are going to share some ideas on how you can get your operations set for 2022. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper and give you some great food for thought as you go through these first 3 tabs in your business plan. So video link will be out tomorrow by 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yep, that's right. And thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for session 1. We really appreciate it. Make sure if you haven't registered for 2, 3, and 4, you can do that all at the same time. There'll be a follow-up email with this video, the packet again, and the slides. So if you haven't gotten, you should have the email from last week. If you don't have it, you will receive it shortly. And for those of you that may be registered for closing milestones that have access to that, I'll see you in a few minutes.
We'll see you in 1 second. All right, bye team. Make it a great Monday.